And this is about one of our favorite analogies, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. But this is from Charles Hugh Smith. The Titanic analogy you haven't heard, passively accepting oblivion. Whether we realize it or not, we're responding with passive acceptance of oblivion. You've undoubtedly heard rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic as an analogy for the futility of approving policy tweaks to address systemic crisis. I've used the Titanic as an analogy to explain the fragility of our financial system and the glancing blow of the pandemic. But there's a powerful analogy you haven't heard before. To understand the analogy, we first need to recap the tragedy's basic setup. On April 14th, 1912, the liner Titanic, considered unsinkable due to its watertight compartments, struck a glancing blow against a massive iceberg on that moonless, weirdly calm night. In the early hours of April 15th, the great ship broke in half and sank, ending the lives of the majority of its passengers and crew. Of the 2,208 passengers and crew on board, 1,503 perished and 705 survived. The lifeboats had a maximum capacity of 1,178, so some 475 people died unnecessarily. The initial complacency of the passengers and crew after the collision is another source of analogies relating to humanity's near-infinite capacity for denial. The class structure of the era was enforced by the authorities, the ship's officers. As the situation grew visibly threatening, the first-class passengers were herded into the remaining lifeboats, while the steerage, third-class passengers, many of them immigrants, were mostly kept below decks. Officers were instructed to enforce this class hierarchy with their revolvers. 2/3 of all passengers died, but the losses were not evenly distributed. 39% of first-class passengers perished, 58% of second-class passengers lost their lives, and 76% of third-class passengers did not survive. There you go. Did y'all know that? Did you know that? Rudimentary calculations by the ship's designer, who was on board to oversee the maiden voyage, revealed the truth to the officers. The ship would sink and there was no way to stop it. The ship was designed to survive 4 watertight compartments being compromised and could likely stay afloat if 5 were open to the sea, but not if 6 compartments were flooded. Water would inevitably spill over into adjacent compartments in a domino-like fashion until the ship sank. What did authorities do with this knowledge? Stripped of niceties, they passively accepted the oblivion as the outcome and devoted their resources to enforcing the class hierarchy and the era's gender chivalry. 80% of male passengers perished. 25% of female passengers lost their lives. Wow, did you guys know that? Did you know that? Well, at least they weren't sexist, right? So there you go. Most of the men gave their lives, and most of the women survived. 75%. The loading of passengers into lifeboats was so poorly managed that only 60% of the lifeboat capacity was filled. That also really sucks. What if the officers had boldly accepted the inevitability of the ship sinking early on and devised a plan to minimize the loss of life? It would not have taken an extraordinary leap of creativity to organize the crew and passengers volunteers to strip the ship of everything that floated, wooden deck chairs, etc., and lash them together into rafts. Given the calm seas that night and the freezing water, just keeping people above water could have been enough. Rather than promote the absurd charade that the ship was fine, just fine, when time was of the essence, the authorities could have rounded up the women and children and filled every seat on the lifeboats. Of the 1,030 people who could not be placed in a lifeboat, 890 were crew members, including about 25 women. The crew members were almost all in the prime of life. If anyone could survive several hours on partially submerged raft, it would have been the crew. The first rescue ship arrived about 2 hours after the Titanic sank. Would this hurried effort to save everyone on board have succeeded? At a minimum, it would have saved an additional 475 souls via careful loading of the lifeboats to capacity. And if the makeshift rafts had offered any meaningful flotation at all, many more lives would have been saved rather than devote resources to maintaining the pretense of safety and order. What if the ship's leaders had focused their response around answering a simple question? What was needed for people to survive a freezing night once the lifeboats were filled and the ship sank? I think you see the analogy to the present. Our leadership, such as it is devoting resources to maintaining the absurd pretense that everything will magically reset. Oh, there's that word again. To September 2019 if we just print enough money and bail out the financial aristocracy. Or let's take this analogy and put it on climate change. They're devoting resources to maintaining the pretense that everything, that nothing is all that bad and everything's fine. And if we just get to net zero by 2050, we're going to make it, guys. We're going to make it. Like they're really, really putting a lot of energy on everything being just fine, right? And that is actually the real tragedy. Economics be damned, whatever. Yes, the economy is important, and an economic crash or economic pain is not nice to endure, but the real tragedy is ignoring how bad climate change is and not letting people know that if we all sat our ass at home and stopped flying and stopped driving and radically rearranged our lives on a global scale, we could reduce emissions by 17%? Let's go for 20 or 30 in the next 5 years. You know what? That's a lot more than we are going to do in the next 5 years, going like Green New Deal for the next 5 years, right? Even if Biden gets elected, Green New Deal, yeah, that's a great idea. We should do that. Oh no, we've got to legislate it. Oh no, we got to bring it to the floor of Congress. Oh, I don't think it's going to pass. We're going to do that for 5 years, and emissions are going to continue to go up for the next 5 years, right? Or we could tell everyone that climate change is a big, bad, scary gorilla in the room, and we all need to just take our coronavirus knowledge, take our ability to adapt, and look how well we did with coronavirus, and apply that to climate change. That is not a crazy idea. That is not wild-eyed. It's not cuckoo. It's a little uncomfortable. It's like a little uncomfortable. It's not even that uncomfortable, right? To tell everybody like, look, this is what we got to do. It's really people. That's not uncomfortable on any level. Guys, we're going to have to kind of shut down parts of the economy. We're just going to have to start doing that. And we're going to have to figure out other things to do. That's just not that uncomfortable of a message to give people. The fire, what fire? The Colorado fires? Magical Thinking Barbie is saying the fires are almost reaching as far as Iowa now. Yeah, I'm about to cover that. Anyways, good article by Charles Hugh Smith, I thought. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let's get into some climate change news. Well, it's all been kind of relative to climate change. But yes, there are some huge wildfires going on in Colorado. Evacuations ordered near Boulder, Colorado as new wildfire breaks out. I think there's a few. Sorry, I thought I heard something. I think there's a few wildfires going on. A new wildfire known as the Cal Wood Fire caused evacuation orders and closures in Boulder County on Saturday. The western U.S. has been experiencing a record year for wildfires. The Cal Wood Fire burning in Boulder County is producing a massive smoke plume. You can see the orange flames from many miles away in Boulder. Sorry, getting a disturbance. Moving on here to Daniel Swain, tweet from Daniel Swain. Even as climate scientists studying extreme weather and wildfire in a warming climate, I was shocked by how fast the Cal Wood Fire roared down the Colorado Front Range foothills this afternoon. This is footage of one of several large fire vortices I observed while leaving the area. Watching it barrel down the hill behind where I board my horses was one of the most horrific things I've seen in my life. Grateful to everyone who helped us get them out. Some massive smoke plumes there. Are there any other there are fires going on in Omaha? Oh, they're close. Oh, well, and that would make sense if they were in Nebraska, right? The wildfire season is not over yet. In fact, it's just beginning. And speaking of this, news from regarding the wildfires in California, Trump initially rejected the request for relief, wildfire emergency aid relief in California, and then quickly reversed himself. So we're gonna check out this story. Trump reverses decision to reject California's request for wildlife relief. That's a good thing. That's good. I mean, I don't know what the reason for rejecting it would be. Nah. The president gave his approval to a package of wildfire disaster relief only hours after officials from his administration had explained why the state should not receive the aid. Why should they not receive the aid? I don't get it. Didn't get the original explanation. President Trump reversed himself on Friday, approving a package of wildfire disaster relief for California hours after officials from his administration had explained why the state should not receive the aid. The abrupt turnaround came after the president spoke with Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, and Representative Kevin McCarthy, a Republican, and the House Minority Leader, with the White House, saying the men presented a convincing case for the state receiving the aid. Okay, so, I mean, I guess that's good. He's receptive to, somebody saying, hey, listen, this is important. Again, I'm not a fan of Trump, and I'm not a supporter of Trump. However, this is not like a fascist dictator move, okay? Sorry. We're not going to give the aid. Okay, that's stupid. Hey, could you give us the aid? Oh, all right. Come on. With the White House saying the men presented a convincing case for the state receiving the aid. The disaster relief aid, this, again, I'm not saying that Trump is a great president on any level, okay? He's not. He's mostly a walking disaster. The disaster relief aid covers 6 major wildfires that scorched more than 1.8 million acres, destroyed thousands of structures, and caused at least 3 deaths last month. Just got off the phone with President Trump, who has approved our major disaster declaration request, Mr. Newsom of California said in a statement, grateful for his quick response. The relief package adds to the 68 fire-related aid packages for California that Mr. Trump has approved during his tenure, 61 for firefighting, 5 for disaster relief, and 2 for support of emergency services. Earlier on Friday, Judd Deere, a White House spokesman, referred to the Federal Emergency Management Agency when he said aid for the September fires was not supported by the relevant data the states must provide for approval, and the president concurred with the FEMA administration's recommendations, of course, stupidly. Lizzie Litzow, the agency's press secretary, said damage assessments from some of the fires that started in early September, which included one of the largest fires in California's history, were not of such severity and magnitude to exceed the combined capabilities of the state, affected local governments, voluntary agencies, and other responding federal agencies. The initial rejection was unusual but not unprecedented. A 2017 report by the Congressional Research Service found that from 1974 to 2016, presidents denied requests for disaster relief an average of 2.9 times per year during non-election years and 2.1 times in a year with a presidential election. Oh, well, so kind of like a historical precedent for, so, all right. So there you go. what I take this story for its face value, but there's a precedent for presidents rejecting aid. I'm sure maybe there's some data in there about like Democrats as opposed to Republicans, or but who knows? They didn't go that deep into the data. But anyways, bunk that he rejected the aid in the first place. Also, not a precedent for saying, "Oh my God, he's out of control." I'm sure, like George W. Bush, also another famous proto-fascist Republican president. Super big asshole, George W. Bush, by the way. He did other really like insanely detrimental things to the environment. I'm not saying it's okay for Trump to do it. I'd rather he not do that. I really wish he wouldn't do that. I really wish we would get a president who would take the environment seriously, and that's not Joe Biden. Sorry, it's not Donald Trump, and it's not Joe Biden. But whatever. And I know a lot of people are probably, oh, I'm so mad. Oh, anyways. Let's move on. This is a wild video, guys. I'm going to play this video in its entirety because it's all 4 minutes long, but this is a tornado hits the intersection of New York City. And thank you, Cyrus, for posting this in the comment section, but this is pretty crazy. That was pretty nuts, don't you think? It took like it went from totally calm to like raging, like glass breaking tornado in a couple of seconds. Like that was wild. I don't know if that was an actual tornado or not, but like, yeah, New York City unfazed. The thing that was wild to me was like somebody was just riding their bike down the street like boop doo like yeah, whatever. Like that was pretty awesome. Yeah, I don't know if it was a verified. I don't know if that was an actual tornado, but the this the severity of the wind F1. Yeah, severity of the wind, like the speed with which that escalated was pretty wild. Uh, okay, let's move on. This is the last thing I wanted to read for you today. I didn't really actually read this article, but I just like the title, so I'm going to read it to you, and we're going to go through this together and see how this goes. And this is titled "How I Became a Disillusioned Environmentalist and Why I Worry That My Efforts Haven't Made Any Difference." Anybody feeling this way? I was an environmentalist before I knew what the word meant. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not patting myself on the back. I only mean to say that I love the earth even as a young child, and I saw that we were hurting it and wanted to stop that cycle of abuse. By the time I was in middle school, I started getting pretty hardcore. I was in 8th grade when the Exxon Valdez spilled its oil into the Prince William Sound. My science teacher, a very young woman named Molly Brown, read us news stories about it every day, barely holding back tears. At night, I went home and watched the news footage of the wildlife stumbling around in the crude oil in the last moments of their life. Even now, as I write this, it brings tears to my eyes. I couldn't bear what we were doing to the planet and why were so few people upset about it. Because people are assholes. Why wasn't our government doing anything about it? None of it made any sense to me. Fast forward 20 years and finally, going green became a thing. Finally, taking care of the earth seemed to be on the cultural radar. And not just that, but it was cool. Suddenly, the internet was filled with influencers sharing how they were cutting SLS out of their beauty routines, how they were thinking of buying a truck that ran on vegetable oil. Remember those days? That was funny. That was short-lived. How they were fantasizing about going off the grid. I was in heaven. I'd waited my whole goddamn life for this to become trendy. It was about time. But everything seemed off. There were dozens of young, hot, white women putting books out about their experiments with going green. But the books always disappointed me. Some of them were literally just catalogs, hundreds of pages explaining why the products we used in our homes were toxic and what we could buy to offset or remove these toxins. Not to mention that, you had to go buy a book. Let me buy this book and learn about it. In other words, a high-end shopping list that included a whole lot of green items that didn't seem to be necessities, right? Beware all the simplifying your life fad. That means throwing away a bunch of shit so you could buy some more shit, okay? So that's what that means. Stop, just stop the whole cycle. For a second, just stop and don't bring anything new into your life. Don't throw everything away willy-nilly. Just stop and consider the things that you have. Just sit with them. It's fine. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. It doesn't mean that your life is not progressing if you're not getting something new. Then there was this. There were the "This is what happened during my 1-year challenge" books. And we just watched a video yesterday about a man who only ate the food that he grew for 1 year. Hopefully he's still doing that, right? Hopefully that was a couple of years ago and he's still just eating his own food. Maybe he gave all that up and now he lives in Brooklyn and he's, riding his bike around as he rides his bike to the subway so that he can invest in stocks. I don't know. There were stories about people living without electricity or giving up their cars for a year. I found them vaguely interesting, but in the end, they fell flat. After the books ended, I'd ask, so now what? What were they going to do in the aftermath of their challenge? How was this going to contribute to the greater cause over the course of a lifetime? When my boyfriend and I moved in together in 2009, I decided to do all the things I had dreamed of doing to make my life as green as possible. I literally went all out. I would turn on less light at night. I tried to reduce my plastic consumption to zero and got pretty close. That's really hard to do, so kudos. I started making all my own beauty products, and I started bicycle commuting, going from 300 to 400 miles per month in my car to less than 50. It wasn't easy. My family moaned and groaned every time I refused to take home leftovers in a Ziploc bag. My beautiful coworkers with perfect makeup and flawless blowouts teased me relentlessly about how brave I was to show up every day sweaty, my hair irreparably windblown. Good for you. Oh, man. I love a girl who's sweaty, who has windblown hair. Please. Anyways. I'm sorry. I had to stop myself. My boyfriend moaned about the cost of our CSA or the endless amount of time I spent in our yard tending to my container garden. This is her container garden in 2011. Even with the challenges that were aspects of my lifestyle changes that I loved. I loved supporting local farmers and loved even more the opportunity to grow my own veggies. I loved that I was learning to get by with less plastic. And I adored commuting by bicycle most of the time. I had finally thrown myself into the efforts at full throttle, hoping that we were, as a culture, transitioning into a greener way of life. It seems as if it had been an inevitable move since the Industrial Revolution. I just couldn't believe it had taken so long to get there. This is pointless, my boyfriend told me often. All this trouble you go to save the planet, that's all liberal propaganda. There's nothing wrong. You don't need to be going to all this trouble. All right, well, that dang liberal propaganda, it's fine. The weather always changes. But my efforts often encroached on my lifestyle, on his lifestyle. Yeah, not her lifestyle. He didn't want to have to live in a house that didn't have Ziploc bags in it. In fact, he was a plastic junkie. Ooh, that's not a match made in heaven. He even owned a 3D printer and had boxes and boxes of plastic thread in the garage that he fed into that machine. Wow. He owned 2 cars and a motorcycle, which he drove hundreds of miles each week just for pleasure. When he went shopping to restock his pantry shelf, he bought dozens of pre-packaged snacks that came in plastic tubs, nestled within cardboard sleeves wrapped in an outer layer of plastic. Oh, yeah. We need all the packaging. And he wasn't going to waste time cutting all his plastic soda rings to prevent them from ending up around some poor turtle's neck when it eventually ended up in the ocean. Yeah, sounds like a, typical jackball, uncaring American. There was nothing I could do about this. I am not the type of person who would ask her partner to take on all her causes. That's when you need to find a new partner, I guess. My boyfriend had already done a lot to accommodate my activism, but I knew where the line was and I wasn't going to ask him to cross it. But as the years went on, I began realizing how utterly pointless my efforts were. No, say it ain't so. No, come on back. Every single thing I did was being canceled out by the person I lived with. Oh man, that actually sounds pretty frustrating. Not to mention the other millions of people in America. Oh yeah, did I mention that by 2013 the Going Green movement seemed to have gone out of fashion? Oh yeah, the Obama era was in full swing and people are like, whatever, it's fine. Obama's on the case. Just don't worry about it. Yeah, I know, a little bit of fracking, it's fine. Whatever. It's fine, guys. Let's go on a trip to Europe. Or better yet, China. I guess a lot of people really did see it as a one-year experiment that might earn you a book deal, and then after that, it was business as usual. Maybe that's not fair. There were certainly a lot of big names out there that I believe were legitimately trying to create systemic change. Yet I witnessed the public and even the media constantly criticizing them for promoting green living in sound bites. As if the little changes we make like turning off the faucet while you brush your teeth, will actually create any kind of impact. Just take a look at all the pushback Colin Beavan received from journalists back in the late aughts, or watch his documentary No Impact Man to see people arguing what he was doing was superficial, I guess. I was astounded by that then and continue to be astounded by it now. What's the argument? That we can only make genuine impact by taking extreme measures, and since that's not a realistic solution, we should do nothing at all? It seems to be the message so far as I can tell. And what a dumb, short-sighted, unthoughtful, lazy message that is. And yet, if everyone, or nearly everyone, had taken these sound bites to heart, had made these adjustments, we would be in a very different place today, a better one. To call any efforts to have a lighter impact on the earth superficial is a cop-out, pure and simple. It's a great way to spin the message beneath that we don't really care about the earth and have no intention of inconveniencing ourselves on her behalf. I'm sorry to say I gave up a lot of my green efforts. For instance, I stopped working so hard to avoid plastic consumption. That feels utterly hopeless to me in a world that's literally made of the stuff, but I still work hard to keep disposable products out of my home. I use cloth pads and menstrual cups when I'm on my period. I garden like a demon and am able to produce 60% of my own food for 5 months out of the year. That's cool. That's good. That's awesome. Though, goddamn it, my neighbor sprays herbicide all along our fence. Ooh, frustrating. Contaminating the soil I worked so hard to heal. I even bicycle commute. Well, that's when I guess you gotta like have a talk with your neighbor, or I don't know. I don't know what you could do about that problem. I even bicycle commute whenever I can, though it's much harder since I moved into this very remote neighborhood 3 years ago. The truth is I don't have much hope for this world, and I don't think my efforts do much good. It is 2020. We are teetering head first into an environmental apocalypse, and still few people seem to care. We call ourselves the smartest beings on the planet. Oh yeah, yet we aren't smart enough to come up with a cheaper, cleaner, manufacturable fuel. We're going to drill in one of the last pristine wildernesses instead. Why? I have been asking myself this question since I saw all those birds struggling in the crude oil along the Alaska coastline. What's it going to take? Another oil spill? Nope. Tried that. Catastrophic weather patterns, years of relentless wildfires, melting icebergs, the rapid destruction of the planet's biodiversity. Nope. Tried all of that too. So when I get on my bike to ride to my sister's house, passed by an endless stream of diesel pickup trucks, I know that what I'm doing doesn't matter. My attempts at a smaller carbon footprint are offset by the hundreds of people in this county who get in their car just to run to the convenience store half a mile away. My garden is contaminated by my neighbor's pesticide use. My attempt to avoid disposable products is negated by all the paper plates my family goes through at a holiday party. I don't know what to do anymore. It seems utterly hopeless. Regardless, I'll keep doing what I'm doing, if only because it reflects my values and because I want to support the amazing youth of the world who are stepping up where we have failed time and again. But damn, we have been cruel to our mother. It breaks my heart every single day. Good article by Yale Wolf. I very much enjoyed that. I hope you all did too. And yeah, I mean, I think we all have different levels of disillusionment. I do too, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't make an attempt. You shouldn't try. I think it's kind of... This is just me speaking personally, and I'm not passing any judgment on anybody else. But just personally, I think it's kind of lame to give up, living as light as you can on the planet, just because you're like, well, nobody else is doing it, so fuck it. Like, I don't agree with that stance. Do your very best all the time, as best as you can. Just keep on trying. Keep witnessing to other people about it, about why you're doing it, about how important it is to do it. keep on being an example and bearing witness. And, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, people's minds start to change. People start to take lessons to heart. A few people somehow, slowly become, kind of a bigger group of people, right? Awareness grows, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel at the links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.